Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Jyotsna Kumar. And on the show today, now 2 people have been fatally shot in a mountain community in western U.S. state of Idaho. Now, according to officials, they were responding to a brush fire. Governor Brad Little has posted on X that multiple heroic firefighters were attacked. We'll bring you all the developments as they come in on the show.
Also on World DNA, a Washington Post report has, they've reported that they intercepted Iranian communications, downplayed the extent of damage caused by US strikes on Iran's nuclear program. And this report by the Washington Post is the latest, however, to raise questions about the extent of the damage to Iran's nuclear program under US Midnight Hammer operation. We'll bring you the latest on that as well, because there is a reaction from the White House on that report. There's a lot more lined up for you. Let's start with the headlines.
At least 2 have been killed after firefighters tackling a blaze were attacked by an unknown number of gunmen in an ongoing standoff in the northwestern U.S. state of Idaho.
Russian spy chief Sergei Narishkin speaks to director of U.S. Central Intelligence Agency CIA John Ratcliffe. Both agree to call each other at any time.
Intercepted Iranian communications downplay the extent of damage caused by U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear program, says a Washington Post report, citing those familiar with the matter. White House reacts, accuses the American Daily of helping people commit felonies by publishing out-of-context leaks.
Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu says his country's recent war with Iran has created opportunities for freeing hostages held in Gaza, even as witnesses and rescuers reported more than 30 people killed in the Strip.
India's Civil Aviation Ministry gives update on probe into the crash of Air India flight AI-171. Minister of State Muralidhar Mohol says incident being examined from all angles, including the possibility of a sabotage.
Protesters marched through southern Spain's Seville, calling for debt cancellation, climate justice and taxing the super rich on the eve of a UN summit on financing development.
Thousands set up street blockades in Serbia over the arrest of anti-government protesters who clashed with police at a massive rally a day earlier, demanding early elections.
President Trump says he would not be extending the global tariff pause past July 9th. Countries will be notified soon as the US prepares to impose penalties without new deals.
LeBron James is set to play a record 23rd NBA season with Los Angeles Lakers. The 40-year-old is exercising his $52.6 million option for the upcoming season. Now, At least 2 people have been killed after firefighters tackling a blaze were attacked by an unknown number of gunmen in an ongoing standoff in the northwestern U.S. state of Idaho.
The Kootenai County Sheriff Robert Norris said this in a statement that the attack was carried out with high-powered rifles. The sheriff said that stressed on the goal of law enforcement was to track the assailants down and shoot on sight.
We are actively taking sniper fire as we speak. This is an active situation. We have multiple agencies that are on scene from local and federal authorities, and we are prepared to neutralize this suspect who is currently actively shooting at public safety personnel. We are prepared to neutralize this suspect as quickly as possible.
Norris said authorities did not believe the suspects were barricaded inside a building, but were in heavy brush and were blending in with their surroundings. They were well prepared, authorities say that they did not know if there was 1, 2, 3, or 4 shooters.
The Deputy Director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, described it as an active scene and said that the Bureau was sending personnel to provide tactical and operational support. Now, according to reports, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has been briefed on the matter.
Now, gun violence is common across the United States, where many states have few barriers to the purchasing of firearms. And according to the Gun Violence Archive, there have been 189 mass shootings in the United States this year, defined by the organization as incidents where at least 4 people are killed or wounded, other than the shooter. All right, for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tarani has sent us this report. Listen to this.
2 firefighters were killed and several others wounded after they were ambushed by gunfire while responding to a brush fire in the U.S. state of Idaho. Officials believe that the fire was started deliberately in order to lure first responders before the attack. The suspect, possibly armed with a high-powered rifle, remains at large, and tactical teams, including the FBI, are working to secure the area. Firefighting efforts have been suspended, and residents in nearby areas are under shelter-in-place orders as the search continues. Of course, this is a developing story, and we will bring you the latest as we receive more information. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
And a Washington Post report has said that the communication intercepts of Iranian officials downplayed the extent of damage caused by U.S. strikes on Iran's nuclear program.
Now, the revelation comes as U.S. President Trump is seeking credit for these strikes, dismantling Iran's uranium enrichment facilities.
The report cited 4 people familiar with the classified intelligence circulating within the U.S. government. The Iranian government officials in the intercept were heard speculating as to why the strikes directed by Donald Trump were not as destructive as they had anticipated. The report further read that the latest information had created more confusion regarding the effectiveness of these strikes under Operation Midnight Hammer.
Now, as per Reuters, one of the sources in possession of the intel cautioned about the said intercept, saying that there were serious questions about whether the Iranian officials were being truthful. The source said that the intercepts were unreliable indicators of the actual damage.
Meanwhile, the White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has dismissed the report, saying that the Washington Post was helping people commit felonies by publishing out-of-context leaks. Leavitt further said that the notion of unnamed Iranian officials knowing what happened under hundreds of feet of rubble was nonsense. The statement by Caroline Leavitt is in line with Donald Trump's aggressive approach to counter the damage assessment reports circulating in the U.S. intelligence circles and media.
Now, Trump has also vowed to find out those who leaked Iran strike intelligence and their subsequent prosecution. Several other reports, however, have indicated the Trump administration saying that the damage to Iran's nuclear program was indeed decisive.
Now, in the meantime, Trump has again reiterated his confidence that the strikes had destroyed Iran's nuclear capabilities. Speaking on a Fox News show, Trump said that it was obliterated like nobody's ever seen before, and that strikes were meant to end Iran's nuclear ambitions for at least a period of time.
And more from West Asia. Now, Israel is expanding its offensive in Gaza.
And thousands of Gazans are fleeing their homes yet again, carrying mattresses, bags of belongings, whatever they can carry with them, following new warnings by the IDF.
The residents of Gaza City's Al-Tufa and Al-Daraj neighborhoods were seen taking what belongings they can carry, leaving most of their possessions behind. Describing the scenes of panic and despair, many say they don't know where they will go next.
We left our clothes, food and tents and fled, with martyrs all around us. We don't even know where to go, and we have only God.
The IDF has ordered residents to evacuate parts of Gaza City and surrounding northern areas, warning that military operations in these zones will only intensify. The Israeli military spokesperson Adrei said that military activity will increase and expand with the goal of targeting terrorist organizations in those areas.
The military has called on residents to head south to the Al-Mawasi area in Khan Yunis, which Israel has designated as a humanitarian zone. Now, despite these evacuation orders, humanitarian agencies warned that no location in Gaza can be considered truly safe, as even designated safe zones have come under attack in the past. According to Gaza's health ministry, the war has killed over 56,000 people so far and has wounded 133,054 people.
Under pressure at home and abroad for his criminal cases and handling of the Gaza war, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has won a delay in his corruption trial.
Now, this is with backing from the U.S. Right now, President Donald Trump and his lawyers had asked the court to excuse him for the next 2 weeks so Netanyahu can focus on security matters after the Iran ceasefire and the ongoing war in Gaza. And this comes after Trump came out strongly in support of the Israeli Prime Minister, calling his ongoing corruption trial a travesty of justice. In a lengthy post on Truth Social, Trump claimed the trial is derailing crucial talks on Gaza and Iran and accused Israeli prosecutors of waging a witch hunt.
Trump called Netanyahu a war hero and praised his role in countering Iran's nuclear threat. He also applauded the Israeli Prime Minister's current efforts to negotiate a deal with Hamas to bring home Israeli hostages, suggesting that U.S. aid to Israel, which amounts to billions of dollars each year, should not be taken for granted. Trump declared, "We are not going to stand for this," and urged Israel to let Bibi go.
Now, Netanyahu responded promptly, thanking Trump publicly on Twitter or X now, and saying, "Together we will make the Middle East great again."
Now, these comments have sparked sharp criticism from Israel's opposition leaders. MK Nama Lazimi accused Netanyahu of prioritizing his legal woes over national security, while Yesh Atid party's Karin Elharar warned that linking aid and diplomacy to his personal trial set a dangerous precedent.
Netanyahu is the first sitting Israeli prime minister to face a criminal trial indicted on charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust across 3 cases.
Now, as these political tensions unfold, thousands of Israelis returned to Tel Aviv's Hostages Square, calling for a deal to free remaining hostages and demanding accountability for the government's war strategy.
I believe and I feel that now it's the momentum. Now we have the opportunity to finish the war in Gaza and to bring Nimrod, my son, and the whole of the hostages that are still in hell of Gaza. After we finish the war with Iran, we deal with Hezbollah. There is no threats and nothing is happening in Gaza. It's only a risk of the hostages and our soldiers.
And while some Israelis have been thanking Trump for his past support against Iran, many voiced concern saying that the U.S. should stay out of Israel's domestic affairs.
I thank Trump because he helped a lot in the war to win to Iran. But I think that he doesn't have any right to interfere in Israel politics, inter-Israel things, and his opinion doesn't matter. We don't think we need his opinion. Now has his trial. He has to pass it, and if he is innocent, okay. If not, he has to pay the price, like everybody. This is a democracy.
The U.S. has sounded alarm about China's military advancements, calling for stronger defenses in the Indo-Pacific.
U.S. Air Force Secretary Troy Mink and Space Force Chief General Chance Saltzman testified before a Senate subcommittee this week, raising concerns over China's rapidly expanding missile arsenal and the build-out of a sophisticated kill web.
The Chinese military is said to have over 900 short-range missiles that can strike Taiwan and hundreds more that can reach as far as Alaska, Australia, and even continental United States. Saltzman highlighted that Beijing has deployed over 470 intelligence and surveillance satellites, a network that feeds real-time data into its missile systems, potentially enabling strikes in seconds.
Now, the US says the Department of Defense's next budget prioritizes reinforcements in the Indo-Pacific, specifically to counter the threat to Taiwan. According to military experts, a full-scale invasion of the self-ruled island remains unlikely. They argue China is far more likely to use coercive tactics, including political warfare, economic pressure, or a naval blockade, rather than risk the devastating repercussions of an amphibious assault. Remember, China claims Taiwan as its own territory.
But Taiwan is not taking any chances. It is rapidly developing a high-tech fleet of sea drones, hoping to replicate Ukraine's successes in the Black Sea against Russia's Navy. Defense Minister Wellington Koo confirmed Taiwan's plans to deploy these naval drones as early as this year.
Some of Taiwan's sea drones include Sea Shark 800, which has a range of 600 kilometers and a payload of 1,500 kilograms. The other known sea drone is Carbon Voyager 1, having a range of almost 121 kilometers and a payload of 80 kilograms. The drones are aimed at turning the Taiwan Strait into a fortress. Experts say these autonomous vessels, have some powered by AI, others designed to swarm, could pose a serious threat to China's amphibious operations.
The one notable partnership between Taiwan and U.S.-German firm Auterion will bring AI-enabled drone swarm to Taiwan's armed forces. But there are challenges ahead. Experts warn against placing too much faith in drones alone. The Taiwan Strait's choppy waters aren't the same as Ukraine's Black Sea conditions, and scale, for that matter, remains a big hurdle.
The Pakistani Army Chief Asim Munir has once again issued threats against India, reiterating his Free Kashmir rhetoric.
Munir's dubious remarks came during his first public address after India's Operation Sindoor and his meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump earlier this month.
Speaking at a Pakistan Naval Academy in Karachi, Munir raked up the Kashmir issue. He pledged political and moral support to Kashmir. The Pakistan Army Chief reaffirmed his country's unwavering support for terrorism in the region, disguised as legitimate struggle.
We can never miss to mention about the great sacrifices of our Kashmiri brethren. We stand firm with the Kashmiri people for their right of self-determination. What India tends to term as terrorism is in fact the legitimate struggle as per the international conventions. Those who endeavored to subdue the will of Kashmiri people and sought conflict elimination instead of resolution have made it more relevant and pronounced through their own actions.
Indian investigation in Pahalgam attack has revealed that all 3 militants involved in April's deadly attack on tourists were Pakistani nationals. All the attackers belong to the UN-proscribed militant group Lashkar-e-Taiba. The headquarters of the terrorist group in Muridke was hit by India during Operation Sindoor.
Now, Munir went on to accuse India of destabilizing peace in the region. He called Pakistan a net stabilizer in the region, and Pakistan Army Chief called India's Operation Sindoor a strategic miscalculation that lacked foresight. Listen to this.
As we steadily but surely build our comprehensive national power, any enemy acting on perceived vulnerability of Pakistan under the illusion of strategic impunity or miscalculation would get an assured, swift and a very befitting response.
Now, India struck 9 terror hubs deep inside Pakistan under Operation Sindoor. New Delhi has maintained that it only hit terror targets and had no intentions to engage with Pakistan military until it responded on their behalf. Masood Azhar, Hafiz Saeed and several other terrorists are operating inside Pakistan under state protection.
Now, after blaming India for its response against terrorism, Asim Munir moved to blaming India for undermining Pakistan's efforts to counter terrorism within the country.
It is also no coincidence that India deliberately creates strategic distractions whenever Pakistan is close to decisively turning the tide against terrorism. Our adversities have only made us emerge stronger. We will take our fight against terrorism to its logical conclusion.
From Balochistan to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan's homegrown separatist movements have turned violent in recent times. Pakistan Army is facing nearly daily attacks in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. On Saturday, at least 16 Pakistani soldiers were killed in a suicide blast and left more than 24 people injured in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. A faction of Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan has claimed responsibility. In other global news, Uganda's longtime president, Yoweri Museveni, has formally announced his bid for a 7th term in office, a move that could see his rule stretch to nearly half a century.
The 80-year-old leader, who has held power since 1986, picked up his nomination papers at the headquarters of the ruling National Resistance Movement in Kampala, where he was greeted by a cheering crowd of party supporters, waving flags and chanting slogans. From taking part in the rebellion against Idi Amin in 1970s to leading a guerrilla war against Milton Obote, Yoweri Museveni's political journey began as a rebel. He became president for the first time following a military victory in 1986. Nearly a decade later, he became president through direct elections. And since then, he has removed all age and term-related provisions from the constitutions that would have perhaps barred him from becoming president.
Museveni's announcement comes amid rising domestic and international criticism over his lengthy rule, with opponents accusing him of entrenching authoritarianism and crushing political dissent. Now, once praised for restoring stability after years of military coup and chaos, Museveni now faces growing pressure from a younger population demanding political change.
Museveni's 4-decade rule is marred by the accusations of oppressing opposition leaders, election rigging, military intimidation and media blackouts, which have generated political instability, creating anger against Museveni. And from the misty wetlands of Henan to the shimmering shores of Qinghai Lake, China's wetlands are bursting with life.
And this comes as the breeding season peaks. Tens of thousands of migratory birds are turning these landscapes into vibrant breeding grounds. Here's a report. a pivotal battle in the wars of the Napoleon era was remembered once again as part of an annual reenactment.
And this reenactment drew thousands of visitors. Take a look at this next report.
It's nice to be here because of the feeling and seeing the actual landscape of the battle, and it's very nice to see the actual place where the battle was fought.
Well, now it's time for a quick short break, but don't go anywhere. On the other side of World Daily, we have more. We start off with India's Civil Aviation Ministry, who has said, and also given an update on the probe into the crash of Air India flight AI 171. The incident is being examined from all the angles, including the possibility of a sabotage.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will be leaving for the US. He will participate in the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting. We'll bring you all the details on that front as well. This and a lot more on the other side. Come right back. This is World DNA.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at WION.com.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch. WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide, because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, World is One.
Welcome back. You're watching World DNA with Jyotsna. I'm Shivan. Let's start with the headlines.
Iran's top Shiite cleric issues a fatwa against U.S. President Trump. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls them enemies of God, urges Muslims across the world to unite and bring down the American and Israeli leaders for threatening Islamic Republic leadership.
Intercepted Iranian communication downplayed the extent of damage caused by US strikes on Iran's nuclear program, says a Washington Post report. Citing those familiar with the matter, White House reacts, accuses the American Daily of helping people commit felonies by publishing out-of-context leaks.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country's recent war with Iran has created opportunities for freeing hostages held in Gaza, even as witnesses and rescuers reported more than 30 people killed in the Strip.
At least 2 people have been killed after firefighters tackling a blaze were attacked by an unknown number of gunmen in an ongoing standoff in the northwestern U.S. state of Idaho.
Russian spy chief Sergei Nashkin speaks to Director of U.S. Central Intelligence Agency CIA John Ratcliffe. Both agreed to call each other at any time.
India's Civil Aviation Ministry gives an update on the probe into the crash of Air India flight AI-171. Minister of State Muralidhar Mohol says that incident is being examined from all angles, including the possibility of a sabotage.
Protesters marched through southern Spain's Seville, calling for debt cancellation, climate justice, and taxing the super rich on the eve of a UN summit on financing development.
Thousands set up street blockades in Serbia, angry over the arrest of anti-government protesters who clashed with the police at a massive rally a day prior, demanding early elections.
Oil prices fell 1% as West Asia tensions eased and expectations of an OPEC Plus output hike in August raised supply concerns. Brent and WTI both traded lower.
LeBron James is set to play a record 23rd NBA season with Los Angeles Lakers. The 40-year-old is exercising his $52.6 million option for the upcoming season.
India's Civil Aviation Ministry has given an update on the probe into the crash of Air India flight AI-171.
Minister of State Muralidhar Mohol says that the incident is being examined from all angles, including the possibility of a sabotage. And this marks the first official acknowledgement that foul play has not been ruled out.
The June 12th crash claimed 274 lives. 243 were on board and 31 on ground, making it one of India's worst aviation disasters in recent history. The ill-fated flight en route from Delhi to Ahmedabad went down shortly after takeoff. Speaking to the media, Mohan said it is unprecedented for both engines to shut down simultaneously, adding, however, that the cause of the crash will only be known after the full investigation report is made available. The Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, AAIB, is leading this investigation.
It is currently working extensively to examine data retrieved from the black boxes. One black box was recovered from the rooftop of a building at the crash site on the 13th of June and the other from the debris 3 days after that, that is on 16th of June. A controversy has erupted over comments made by India's defense attaché to Indonesia on Operation Sindoor.
Now, this is with the Indian Embassy in Jakarta now issuing a strong clarification. Listen to this.
India lost a lot of aircrafts. I may not agree with him that India lost so many aircrafts, but I do agree that we did lose some aircraft, and that happened only because of the constraint given by the political leadership.
Navy Captain Shiv Kumar had made this remark on Operation Sindoor while speaking at a university seminar in Jakarta. Clarifying these remarks, the embassy has now said that his remarks were quoted out of context, calling the reports a misrepresentation of the presentation's intent.
Now, taking to X, the Indian Embassy said, and I'm quoting here, the remarks have been quoted out of context. The presentation highlighted that Indian forces operate under civilian political leadership, unlike some other countries in our neighborhood. The operation targeted terror infrastructure and the Indian response was non-escalatory, unquote.
But the political storm back at home has only grown louder, with the Congress party in opposition accusing the Modi government of misleading the nation. Congress leaders have renewed their demands for a special session of parliament and ask why Prime Minister Modi has not yet convened an all-party meeting on the issue. Congress MP Jairam Ramesh took to social media saying, why is the Prime Minister refusing to take the opposition into confidence? First, the CDS speaks in Singapore, then a defense official in Indonesia. Where is the political leadership?
Now, earlier, India's Chief of Defense Staff, General Anil Chauhan, had also referred to an aircraft loss while speaking to international media in Singapore, while clearly rejecting Islamabad's claims of downing 6 Indian jets as absolutely incorrect. Now, India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will be leaving for the U.S. today.
And this is to participate in the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting. The Ministry of External Affairs in an official statement said that the invitation for the meeting was extended by U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Dr. Jaishankar will remain in the U.S. till 2nd of July and will participate in the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting that is scheduled for July 1st. He will also be inaugurating an exhibition at the UN headquarters highlighting the toll of terrorist acts around the world and the steps taken by the international community to combat them.
The Ministry of External Affairs emphasized that the Quad Foreign Ministers will build upon the discussions held during the last meeting, which took place in Washington, D.C. earlier this year. They will also exchange views on regional and global developments, particularly those concerning the Indo-Pacific.
During the meet, the ministers will review the progress made on various Quad initiatives in the run-up to the Quad Leaders Summit, which will be hosted by India. They are also expected to deliberate on new proposals aimed at advancing the shared vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific. Earlier in January, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, on his first day in office, hosted the 4 ministers of Australia, India, and Japan for a significant meeting of the Quad Alliance.
Foreign demand for tech giants is powering global equity markets.
S&P 500 futures hit another record high led by continued momentum in the mega caps like Nvidia, Alphabet, and Amazon.
The rally spilled over into Asia. Japan's Nikkei rose 1%, South Korea added 0.5%, and MSCI's Asia Pacific Index outside Japan edged up. But all eyes are now on this week's US payrolls data. Markets expect 110,000 job gain for for June, with the unemployment rate ticking up to 4.3%. A weak print could pressure the Fed to act sooner on rate cuts.
Now, expectations of an earlier Fed pivot are rising. A weak jobs report can lift the odds of a July rate cut beyond the current 18%. Now, jobless claims remain elevated, and confidence surveys show weakening sentiment in labor market.
Meanwhile, the dollar is feeling the heat. The dollar index slipped to 97.16, with the euro near its highest level since September 2021. The yen also strengthened, with the dollar down 1% last week. According to Capital Economics, the dollar's year-to-date drop is the steepest since 1973. In Washington, concerns are growing over a massive tax and spending bill, which the Congressional Budget Office warns could add $3.3 trillion to U.S. debt. And that's testing global appetite for treasuries, even as 10-year yields remain stable at 3.27%, following a drop last week.
The commodities also reflect shifting sentiment. Gold eased to $3,266 an ounce, retreating from April's record of $3,500. Oil prices continue on their slide amid concerns over OPEC Plus production plans. Markets now turn to Fed Chair Jerome Powell's remarks at the ECB forum in Sintra for further policy cues. Now, for decades, oil has defined power in West Asia. From the 1973 oil embargo to the 2011 Arab Spring, regional conflicts triggered major price shocks, often doubling or even quadrupling global oil prices.
Oil revenues still account for 70% of government income in many countries like Iraq and Kuwait, but recent geopolitical crises failed to rattle oil markets like before. Prices rose briefly, then quickly reversed, and Brent crude jumped from $80 to $90 but fell to $74 within 3 weeks. Even Iran's involvement, despite holding one of the largest oil reserves and controlling the vital Strait of Hormuz, did not lead to sustained market disruption.
Now compare this to past events. The 1979 Iranian Revolution sent oil prices soaring from $15 to over $30. The Iran-Iraq war pushed them to $40. In today's time, it will be equivalent to $150. Now, interestingly, this is the same amount major economists predicted oil to hit if the recent Iran-Israel war prolonged. Even the Russia-Ukraine war saw oil surge 15%, reaching over $120 a barrel. But today, the market's reaction to West Asia unrest is muted and short-lived. This reflects a changing dynamic. Regional crisis no longer holds the same power over global energy security.
Several factors are driving this shift. The US has sharply reduced its dependence on Gulf oil since 2021. Europe, too, diversified its energy sources post-Ukraine war. Strategic reserves and alternative supply routes have strengthened global resilience. Most importantly, the market now responds less to regional instability unless it concerns Saudi Arabia.
Now, OPEC's anchor and the world's top swing producer, this decoupling of oil and conflict gives Western powers more room to reshape policy in the region, less constrained by fears of energy disruption. The result is a quieter oil market, even in a volatile Gulf.
And cryptos are at the heart of President Donald Trump's economic policy. Trump 2.0 has seen Bitcoin hit a new life high of about $112,000.
Now in 2025, with bets now for the OG token to surge higher beyond the price action, there is more to Trump's crypto bet. Now take a look at this next report for more.
Trump just admitted America is using Bitcoin as an economic policy and said that the OG token takes pressure off the dollar. So it is not just crypto enthusiasm anymore, but a clear economic strategy. Trump once again showed his support for Bitcoin and the crypto industry, insisting it has created several jobs for Americans. Bitcoin isn't the side quest anymore. It is the main character in economic policy at play. Trump admitted in a White House conference on Friday that he is a fan of crypto and lauded its impact on the United States economy. Remarkably, Bitcoin has been on an uptrend for most of Trump's time in office. The OG token has rallied from around $70,000 in November last year to an all-time high of $112,000 in May. The president also highlighted Bitcoin's remarkable resilience during market turbulence. The OG token outperformed risk assets following the backlash to its tariff hike. The rally in Bitcoin pushed its market capitalization to over a staggering $2.1 trillion, and that makes the OG crypto token a more valuable asset than some of the world's most iconic companies. Bitcoin now sits shoulder to shoulder with some of the most influential companies in history. The OG token's market value has risen above some of the big tech giants and industrial titans this year. Bitcoin is more valuable than Meta, Tesla, and Berkshire Hathaway. It's on par with Google's parent company, Alphabet, and while still trailing behind Microsoft, Apple, and Nvidia, Bitcoin is rapidly closing the gap. Now, this comparison shows not just Bitcoin's financial clout, but also how deeply embedded crypto has become in today's financial system. What started as an experimental peer-to-peer cash system in 2009 is now a $2.1 trillion asset class, rivaling corporate juggernauts. With growing institutional investment integration into payment systems and increasing global adoption, Bitcoin is no longer on the fringes. It is at the front and center of the financial landscape. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
Messi could not work his magic as his reunion with his former club, Paris Saint-Germain, ended in disappointment.
The European champions outclassed Messi's Inter Miami 4-0 to punch a ticket in the quarterfinals of the FIFA World Cup. Now, the gulf in class between the two clubs was evident within 6 minutes when Neves powered home a header from a free kick. The 20-year-old midfielder struck again in the 39th minute, finishing off a beautiful team move to double PSG's lead. Inter Miami struggled to create anything meaningful, and their night went from bad to worse when Alves scored an own goal. Frenchman Achraf Hakimi added a fourth just before half-time to put the game to bed. And Messi did show glimpses of his genius in the second half, sparking the 65,000-strong crowd who chanted his name throughout, but it was a bridge too far. PSG have now scored 4 or more goals in 15 different matches in 2025.
Of course I'm very pleased. I'm pleased for João Neves. I'm very happy for the team and also satisfied for the way we faced the game, especially at the beginning. This was some very good work and we're very happy.
Regarding Leo, I think he played really well within the limits of the possibilities that we had. In the second half, when we found him a lot, more because in the first half we couldn't do that, but not because of him, but because it was difficult due to PSG's pressure. We then saw the best of him. And also about Leo, I think that even now, aged 38 years old, people keep on buying a ticket to see him.
Alright, now let's take a look at how the Indian movies are performing at the global box office. Starting with Amir Khan's highly anticipated Sitare Zameen Par, which released on the 20th of June. It has made a significant impact on the international stage. The film had already raked in an estimated $3.95 million from international markets. Its global collection now stands at $14 million. The film enjoyed a strong performance in the Gulf region, where it accumulated nearly $1.3 million.
इंटेलेक्चुअली डिसेबल्ड लोगों की एक बास्केटबॉल टीम को प्रशिक्षित करने का निर्देश दिया जाता है।
मैडम 3 महीने तक पागलों को सिखाऊंगा मैं।
और 500 रुपए जुर्माना।
500 पागल बोलने का?
1000 रुपए।
The mythological epic Kannappa, starring Vishnu Prabhas, Akshay Kumar and Mohanlal released worldwide on 27th of June. In its opening weekend, the film garnered an estimated $431,000 from its overseas run. While the film has shown a stronger performance in its home territory of India, its international collections are a promising start for the multilingual venture.
सब समझने की आवश्यकता भी नहीं। भक्ति के रगर सारे प्रश्नों के उत्तर दे देती है, जिनकी इच्छा के बिना इस संसार में एक पत्ता भी नहीं हिलता।
And Kajol's horror film Ma, which also hit screens on the 27th of June, has collected an estimated $250,000 from its overseas market in its opening weekend. Despite facing stiff competition from other releases, the film has managed to register a presence at the international box office, indicating a niche audience interest. These figures underscore the growing international reach of Indian cinema, with diverse genres finding audiences beyond domestic borders.
स्टॉप तुम्हारा करा दो रहा है क्यों लगा उस काले जंगल की माटी लाल हो चुकी है सदियों से नन्ही बेटियों का
Next up, let's get you the updates on the world of entertainment in Hollywood. The high-octane world of Formula One has translated into a thrilling box office win. F1, the movie, dominated its opening weekend with an impressive $144 million global haul. The Brad Pitt-led racing drama, directed by Joseph Kosinski, surged past expectations, leaving its competitors in the dust. Now, this strong debut firmly establishes Formula One F1 as a force to be reckoned with this summer. Disney's live-action remake of Lilo & Stitch continues to be a phenomenal success at the global box office. The movie is rapidly approaching the coveted billion-dollar milestone, and as of 29th of June, the film has amassed an astounding $946 million worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing films of the year. Well, that's all on World DNA today. But before we wrap up, let's take a look at all the climate stories making headlines across the world. To leave you with these headlines, do stay tuned. News and updates follow on the other side. This is World. WION World is one. Stay tuned.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
We're giving an AI-generated video where we can analyze your credit history